The Decimation. In the pages of Marvel Comics' epic House of M storyline, this was an act of terrible, intimate magic, a whisper that rewrote reality on a genetic level. Uttered by a mentally shattered Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, the words "no more mutants" became a spell of instantaneous global genocide. In a single moment, the mutant population of Earth plummeted from millions to a mere few hundred. This was not a plague or a war, but a fundamental alteration of existence, a silent, surgical removal of a people from the fabric of the world. Its horror lies not in explosive destruction, but in the chilling quiet that followed. The sudden loss of powers, the erasure of a vibrant and diverse culture, and the profound existential despair of the survivors. The decimation represents the ultimate terror of unchecked power, where the grief of a single godlike individual could, with a breath, commit a species level extinction event. The Reaper War. The central conflict of the video game Mass Effect 3, this was the culmination of a 50,000-year cycle of galactic extermination, a harvest conducted by sentient god-like machines. The Reaper's evil is one of horrifying paternalistic logic. To prevent developing organic civilizations from being wiped out by their own synthetic creations, the Reapers systematically destroy them first. Their invasion was not a simple conquest, but an industrial-scale slaughter. Planet after planet fell, their population centers incinerated from orbit, and billions of lives converted into the grotesque, raw material for new reapers. The fall of Earth alone saw its population of nearly 11 billion reduced by half within the opening weeks. This conflict represents a clash against cosmic inevitability, a desperate, galaxy-wide struggle against a foe whose every victory meant the processing of entire species into a slurry of molten metal and organic paste. The Scouring of the Shire. In the final chapters of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, this event is a uniquely profane act of evil, terrifying not for its grand scale, but for its intimate violation of innocence. While the Great War against Sauron was won on distant fields, a lesser, more insidious villainy festered back home. Under the command of the broken wizard Saruman, the Shire was transformed from an idyllic paradise into a petty, industrialized police state. Lush fields were replaced by foul mills, ancient trees were felled for sport, and a culture of simple joy was crushed under the heel of thuggish bureaucracy. The horror of the Scouring is its banality. It is the destruction of home, not by a distant dark lord, but by a grubby, resentful wizard. It is a poignant, bitter lesson that even after the greatest wars are won, evil can still take root in the places you love most. The Snap. The pivotal moment of the Marvel Cinematic Universe film Avengers Infinity War, this was an act of genocide disguised as salvation. With a literal snap of his fingers, the mad titan Thanos used the assembled Infinity Stones to erase precisely half of all living creatures from the universe. This was not an act of rage, but the fanatical execution of a grim Malthusian philosophy. Its terror lies in its absolute impartiality and its instantaneous, bloodless nature. Husbands vanished before their wives' eyes, children turned to dust in their parents' arms, and entire ecosystems were thrown into chaos without a single explosion. It was the ultimate expression of a god complex, a being imposing his terrible balanced will upon all of existence. The snap's true monstrosity is its serene, dispassionate efficiency. A universe-altering atrocity committed not with a roar, but with a quiet final click that brought silence to trillions. The superflu Captain trips. From Stephen King's apocalyptic novel The Stand, this pandemic represents the terrifying fragility of civilization. Born from human error, Captain Trips was a bioengineered influenza strain with a 99.4% mortality rate that escaped a secret military lab. Its horror is mundane and deeply personal. It's spread through handshakes, sneezes, and the simple act of breathing, turning friends and family into vectors of certain death. In a matter of weeks, it emptied cities, silenced nations, and reduced humanity to a handful of immune survivors scattered across a global graveyard. Captain Trips is the quintessential apocalypse of incompetence, a disaster born from humanity's own hubris. It is the terrifying proof that the most deadly force on Earth isn't a monster or a bomb, but a microscopic organism we created and then failed to contain, leaving the world a silent monument to our own folly. The Blight. A recurring cataclysm in the world of BioWare's Dragon Age video games, a blight is a magical plague that embodies cyclical decay. It begins when the Dark Spawn, soulless, corrupted creatures dwelling underground, find and defile one of the old gods, transforming it into a monstrous archdemon. This unholy baptism unleashes the horde upon the surface, a tide of monstrous flesh that sweeps across the land with a singular purpose: to destroy and corrupt. The true horror of a blight is not just the physical devastation, but the spiritual and ecological poison it spreads. The very ground sickens, the sky darkens, and those who survive are often tainted by a creeping madness. It is a war not just for survival, but for the world's soul. A desperate struggle against an enemy that is both a physical army and a creeping supernatural disease that aims to swallow all light. The Hammer of Dawn strikes. From the backstory of the Gears of War video game franchise, this was an act of horrific, necessary self-immolation. Faced with the unstoppable subterranean horde known as the Locust, who had already conquered and slaughtered billions in a decade-long war, the coalition of ordered governments made a decision of last resort. They turned their most powerful weapon, a network of orbital satellites designed to fire beams of super concentrated energy, upon their own cities, their own infrastructure, their own history. On a single day, known as Emergence Day, they incinerated an estimated 90% of the planet's surface to deny the Locust army any further ground. This moment is a monument to desperation, a strategic mass suicide that transformed the world of Serra into a landscape of ash and ruins, proving that sometimes the price of survival is the destruction of everything you sought to protect. The Burning of Teldrasil, a pivotal act of war in Blizzard Entertainment's World of Warcraft, this event was not a strategic necessity but an exercise in pure calculated cruelty. During the Battle for Azeroth expansion, the Horde, under the command of War Chief Sylvanas Windrunner, invaded the Night Elven lands with the goal of seizing their capital, Darnassus. After capturing the city, which resided on the branches of a colossal world tree, Sylvanas chose not to occupy it but to annihilate it. She ordered Teldrassil to be set ablaze, condemning thousands of innocent civilians to burn alive in an inescapable world-sized pyre. This was an act designed not to win a war, but to shatter the spirit of her enemies, to kill their hope. The burning was a monstrous act of genocide, a moment that scarred the world and proved that even in a war between heroes, evil can manifest as a cold, deliberate choice to inflict maximum suffering. The Blackwing Virus. Unleashed in the Star Wars novel Death Troopers, this Imperial bioweapon represents a uniquely terrifying fusion of zombie horror and cold military-industrial malevolence. The virus, codenamed I-71A, was an engineered pathogen designed to be a fast-acting, lethal contagion. However, its true horror manifested in its side effect. It reanimated its victims' corpses into ravenous, near-indestructible killers. On board the Star Destroyer Vector, a containment breach turned the ship's entire complement of crew and stormtroopers into a horde of flesh-eating monsters in mere hours. The Blackwing Virus is terrifying for its sheer speed and brutality, transforming the sterile, orderly environment of an Imperial vessel into a floating tomb of unrelenting chaos. It is the ultimate perversion of life, a weapon so monstrous that even its creators could not control the apocalyptic, cannibalistic nightmare they had engineered for their enemies.